Yes, so next up on track 2 of GUADEC 2020, we have Molly and Melissa with a year of strategic initiatives. Take it away.
Hi. So thanks everyone for coming to listen to this talk. Hopefully we'll hit all the points and answer as many questions as possible. You can find us on Twitter, and there are our email addresses. So if you want to make any comments, emailing us is one of the best things you can do to get a hold of us. Generally, messaging on Rocket Chat is also really useful. On Rocket Chat, Melissa's MWU, and I'm Molly DB. So to make a start here, I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager at the GNOME Foundation. It's okay if you don't know what that means. I didn't know what that meant when I first started, but it sounded like a very impressive title, so I was interested in having it. I came here because I have had this background in free and open source software for a while now. I started my career working at One Laptop Per Child, and since then I've been at MIT OpenCourseware, edX, the Free Software Foundation. And now GNOME. I also had gigs at Ksplice and a few other places over the years. Generally, my work has been done around community organizing, as well as event organizing and organizational sustainability, which is a thing I've been getting more interested in, and is one of the big focuses of the work that I do here. And Melissa Wu is really cool and is going to introduce herself.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I need even more it's just downhill from here after the really cool part, right? So I'm Melissa Wu, and I'm the project coordinator for the Community Engagement Challenge, which is a challenge that we launched earlier this year, and which I will tell you more about a little bit later. I come from outside the GNOME community. My background is in business and marketing. I am formerly a public safety technology consultant. And that is a mouthful that nobody ever knows what that person does. And I now own a travel agency called Woodland Travel, which I do in my non-GNOME time.
Cool. So I have a few goals for today. We have a few goals for what's going to happen over the rest of the session. My first goal is to tell some really great jokes. So I'm just going to imagine you're laughing at all of them. And I actually almost opened up a laugh track to play, and then I thought that switching between windows would be kind of hard. So I appreciate you thinking I'm hilarious, and hope that you think of me kind of as a warm-up act for when Sumina Harehare does her comedy hour. Another thing I'm going to do is share foundation activities. So we're going to talk about stuff that the GNOME Foundation has been doing over the past year. Hopefully this will be exciting to everyone. Some of it will be new. I hope Neil will not find any of it new and not be surprised by anything. That would be really bad. And then the other goal is to get everyone excited. I want you to come out of this thinking that GNOME is super cool, that the past year has been great, that the next year looks awesome, and that you want to be involved in making it happen, and it's going to be cool. And actually, that's most of my job right there. Mostly what I do is I tell jokes, and I try really hard to get people excited about things. Sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it's not so easy. It depends on the topic and what we're talking about. Someone I know once described my job to me as being a digital storyteller, and I really liked that idea. And I try to think about it in that context a lot of saying, okay, so I'm here to talk about what we do and to share what we do with other people who aren't already part of the GNOME Club, to get them knowledgeable and to get them involved and to get them enthusiastic, and to get them to enroll them in the process of what we're doing. And at the same time, I also spend a lot of time talking with people who are already part of the club, to let them know about different things going on, to help them better understand how they can participate, and to grow our community and foundation, really from like a person-first perspective. I also do tell a lot of really bad jokes. I try to keep my coworkers from having to hear too many of them, but if you have had meetings with me, you might be familiar with this. So real talk, a lot of this is going to be about money. Because money, you know, the foundation is still an organization. We have employees, we need to pay them. We have a conference, we need to pay for it. We have lovely captioning right now, which is amazing and great, and we love it. It also costs some money. I know that talking about money is kind of a dirty word in a lot of places and a lot of cultures. So that's a thing we're going to be doing a lot of right now. And I kind of wanted to break the ice in it and just be clear that this is like a major topic of conversation. Thinking about how we're going to keep the proverbial lights on is a big part of what I do. And whether those lights are things like keeping the server lights on, or those things are like, how do we get enough people enthusiastic to go to the next Hackfest that like wonderful other people are planning. You know, that's kind of all part of this story. But supporting GNOME is about a lot more than just money. I don't really like the angle of talking about things too much from a fundraising perspective, which is, it's a really necessary conversation to have, and money is a necessary conversation to have. But a lot of what happens is support, collaboration, and contribution. And those things come from all over, whether that's another company lending us developer time, or that's you showing up at an event and just sharing your opinions. I shouldn't say just sharing your opinions, because there's nothing just about it, but sharing your experiences, like that's incredibly valuable. Participation in whatever form is part of contributing to GNOME, is part of building the foundation, and is part of building the community. And those are the sorts of things that I think about in my work, and those are the sorts of things that I also want you to be thinking about. So supporting GNOME is this really big ecosystem, and while we'll be talking a lot about money, that's not the be all and end all of it. And I also really just don't like thinking about it only in that way. It's collaboration, contribution, and partnership. So here's my first joke. Do you know any good sodium jokes? I could make a poll. Raise your hand if you know any good sodium jokes. Nah, this is really a lot less fun without the audience. This is great because the chemical symbol for sodium is Na, the periodic. It's nah. Oh, somebody's smiling. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just like my other favorite joke is the whale joke, which I'll maybe tell at the end if there's time. So, right, free software is great. We talk about GNOME in the context of it being free software, in the context of it being open source or FOSS. I will generally be using those terms interchangeably during this talk. It's worth noting. But free software isn't always free. It costs a lot of money. Funding supports things like infrastructure, servers, staff, conferences, hackfests, travel grants, interns, outreach, t-shirts, legal fees, and parties. And we all like all of those things. I certainly like all of those things. I'm really a big fan of this big blue button. So I'd like to give a special quick shout out to Andrea and Bart for making it happen, and for, I think, Packet is the people supplying the server time for it. It's great. See, teamwork. So we do a lot with not much as a foundation. This is a little bit of background, kind of about how the GNOME Foundation works. So this is some stuff from our budget and spending. Our income from 2018 to 2019 was just under $800,000 USD. This is all public information. The link is at the bottom. You can access it on your own. Our budget was a little bit more than that. You might notice that these numbers don't line up. by about $150,000. So that's an exciting challenge that we have to think about. So we do a lot without a lot of income. And for a little more context on that, here are some other nonprofits in the sphere. I think of us as being somewhat similar to some of these foundations in terms of size. I think we have 8.5 staff time now. I'm looking at Melissa helplessly, hoping she knows the answer off the top of her head. I should have put that in the slide. So there's the Free Software Foundation. Their budget is about $3.5 million. The Software Freedom Conservancy is about $3 million. Python Software Foundation is about $3 million. Apache Software is about $2 million. The Drupal Association is about $3.5 million. And the Linux Foundation, not a 501c3, nonetheless in the space, $96,500,000. So we have a broad range of funding and resources available to different organizations. So in this context, GNOME has a staff size between that of the Conservancy and the Free Software Foundation, and we work on a much smaller budget than these other organizations. This information is from 990s. Those are tax forms within the United States. That you can find them online if you just search for your favorite nonprofit or similar organization that is not a nonprofit, like the Linux Foundation. You can just search for their name and 990 online. Websites like ProPublica and Charity Navigator, and sometimes these sites themselves have this information available on them, and you can learn about where they spend money, whether board members are compensated, and what kinds of resources they take in and put out, even if they don't have financial documents available, other financial documents available in plans online. I'd like to quick note about the numbers from the previous slide, and GNOME is included in this. In 2017, something magical happened. Bitcoin became worth a whole lot of money. I didn't think that was that bad. I was honestly very surprised and somewhat regretted all the times I said to people, Bitcoin seems really stupid. I'm not interested in it. You don't have to give me any Bitcoin. But someone who goes by the name of Pine had amassed quite a number of Bitcoin and donated them to a number of nonprofits and projects in the free and open source software space, as well as some other organizations. So during 2017, a number of us, GNOME included, I believe, got between about $500,000 to $1 million of donations from this one person, which was really exciting for a number of organizations and really enabled us to take big leaps across the whole field. So when you think about money and funding and you see where we are, and then you look at our bank accounts, like something to take into account is that there is this Pineapple Fund that has helped create that. So here are some of the things that we've done over the past year. To put a little bit more context into what I say we've done, again, it's a small staff. We have 2 sysadmins. We have Emanuele, the sysadmins are Bart and Andrea. Emanuele is the core GTK developer / catch-all developer expert who I at least tend to think knows everything about what's happening in GNOME. So thank you for all your patience with my many questions. We have, of course, Neil, the executive director. Christy, who's the program coordinator. I had to check her title before this because I always call her the programs manager, which I recently learned is not her title. That was exciting. Programs manager was the title of the similar job at the previous place I worked. That was relevant. Then we have Caroline, who's our brand manager, and Melissa, who is the project coordinator for the challenge. And Melissa is about half-time, I believe. So that's the staff. And we definitely help each other a lot as much as possible. I get invaluable support from everyone. Christy has done really great things. Working with her has been amazing. Melissa has been super useful and super helpful. And Caroline is always there. Oh, I forgot Rosanna. How did I forget Rosanna?
I was gonna.
Rosanna is also amazing, and we would not work without her. So a lot of this work that happens is the stuff I'll be talking about. A lot of it is work I've driven, and other people have also. Hi, cat. Sorry, that's my cat. He might say hi. His name is Bash. Hi, buddy. Yes. Anyway, so fundraisers. We did a few of these. We had 3. So I'm going to start with the end of the year fundraiser. For that, so the idea behind the year fundraiser, that we wanted to focus on increasing the number of donors we had. Specifically, this was at Friends of GNOME, but we were looking at it as a goal of donors overall. So generally, when you start a fundraiser, you set out what your goals are, and your goals aren't always just like, here's a number amount, here's a dollar amount, but they're things like, we want to have this many donors, we want to have our fundraiser covered in this many publications, we want a retweet or a Mastodon share from at least 3 board members. We want 1 donation or 5 donations that are over $5,000. So you actually come up with a lot of different goals. And for this one, we wanted to focus on increasing the number of Friends of GNOME and just increasing the number of donors in general, with a special goal on getting new donors, people who haven't contributed financially to GNOME before. Our messaging in it was focused on collective action. The idea of people doing things with us, of us like as a community of them joining us, we're going to step up together, and we want you to participate in that. The strategy was based on experiences I've had before. They're called appeals. An appeal is a message, an email, a blog post, whatever, where you just say, hey, here's what's going on, please support us. And we sent those out as emails, blogs, and social media posts. Really, I'd like to give a special thanks to the staff who helped write these. Emanuele, Andrea, Bart, and Christy, and Neil all wrote them. Rosanna did an amazing job helping them get into a great position before going out. And this was before Caroline worked with us. So I'd like to thank Caroline as a super volunteer at the time, for helping to make everything look good and sound as best as it could at the time. So to share a bit how it went, it was not where we wanted it to be. But it was pretty successful. I'm not sure what this dip is right here. I checked the data a bunch of times. I made these graphs in LibreOffice and I couldn't figure out why it was doing that, because the data all made sense. So I might switch to R the next time I make graphs. I hope some of you are laughing at that, because they're going to be just as bright and colorful and beautiful. Make just as much sense. So what happened was we got about 50% of the goal. We had about 50 new donors over the course of the campaign, which lasted from the end of November through the first week of January. You can sort of see the raises along I'm pointing with my hands and you can't see me pointing with my hands. So this was when it started. I think here was where we posted an appeal, a request that had to do with technology. And around here was at the end in the final push. So we had a pretty quiet state in the middle, and then a big push, and then kind of things sort of steadied off for a while. This was the first of many things that were very educational about the process of running a fundraiser for GNOME, because it began to help us see what sorts of things were valued by the community, and what sorts of tactics work when it comes to getting the community to help support the foundation. I'm talking about the community right now, but it's really important to also contextualize this as not just the people already involved, but everyone else there in the ecosystem. if you look at the numbers of Ubuntu and Fedora and Debian and some other Linux distributions that ship natively with GNOME, you would come to the conclusion that millions of people use GNOME. If you believe those numbers are true and that nobody ever switches desktop environments. And so, you know, if everybody gave $1, we'd be doing great. But that's not the case. So what we found in this is that in reaching out to the people we were already talking with, they cared the most about technical direction, technical discussion, and technical advancement. It also was really clear that we needed to do a lot to build mailing lists. Building mailing lists is for a lot of nonprofits, considered to be one of the most effective things you can do to increase fundraising opportunity. Because those are the people who are interested in what you do, who you're reaching out to directly, who might not already be supporting your work. And some of them are already supporting your work. So those were some of the takeaways from it. Sorry, I mixed up slides. Yeah, so those are some of the things we learned that were all very useful. We also had a legal fundraiser. So this thing happened in October, where I was on vacation in Japan. Well, vacation, I was visiting my brother and also working and taking time off. So I was in Japan, and then I get this like frantic text from Neil saying, I started a fundraiser. And I'm like, wait, you're doing this thing without me. I have no clue what's going on. What's happening? It's like 2 a.m. here. What the heck? And it turned out that we were being sued, by which I really mean that Rothschild Patent Imaging, a non-practicing patent holding entity, had levied charges against the GNOME Foundation, alleging that we were in violation of their patents. So what Neil did and what we did was we launched very quickly a fundraiser. Our goal was to pay the legal fees. This was like really just kind of slapped together. Not to say that it wasn't thoughtful, but it was an emergency. Oh my God, we need to make this thing happen now. So the goal for that was $125,000. Legal fees and litigation costs way more than $125,000. But we wanted to crowdsource that much, and then we had a goal amount to come from larger sponsorships, which we are talking to companies about. There wasn't a lot of formal structure, not a lot of philosophy, and the general methodology was just to keep asking about it. I think this is a really good parallel to those of you who remember the GNOME trademark conversation with Groupon, I think it was. Talk to Shri about it, Krishna. Just message him on Rocket Chat if you want to know more. He has a great lightning talk about it. There's probably a recording somewhere. So we did that, and it was wildly successful. We raised about $150,000 from over 4,000 donors. And what this taught us was that people get really excited by big newsworthy things that are going on in an immediate moment. And that when things can be utilized to people outside of the GNOME club, it makes a lot more sense to them. And that's the thing that they want to get behind. They want to get behind supporting open source. They want to get behind supporting free software. They want to get behind supporting small projects and like helping the underdog. And they want to get behind things that matter to them, especially when it feels very timely, which isn't always the case when you're like talking about just general sustainability fundraising. So that was a great experience, and I'm not glad it happened, but I'm glad we did it from an education perspective. We also ran a mid-year fundraiser. So the goal for that was donations. We wanted to raise $10,000. That number came from somewhat randomly picked based on the previous experiences raising funds quickly over a short period of time, which are specifically the Groupon trademark, I think it was Groupon, and the legal fees. So we picked $10,000. Our messaging was project-based. We were looking at work GNOME was doing, inspired by the enthusiasm for people targeting specific projects. We wanted to look at GNOME and we asked ourselves, what are we excited about that's going on? And how do we get other people excited about those things? So we kind of had this idea of charity buckets, where we picked 3 topics. We picked development for WebKit GTK. For GTK4, we picked building GNOME community in Africa, and we had just a general fund. And the idea was that when people would donate for that fundraiser, they would basically be like putting a vote into, I would like to see efforts focus on this thing. We had appeals, emails, blogs, and social media again, and the staff was super awesome from all perspectives with writing and ideas and chatting, and the engagement channel had some great ideas too. I'd like to give some special shout outs to Sigu and Regina, who consulted on the Building GNOME Community in Africa conversation. So this wasn't that great. It could have been a lot better. I don't know what's happening here in this graph. That's another, I checked it out and tried to figure it out. So if you're better at LibreOffice graphs than I am, like, please help me. This line, the highest line, that is the WebKit that is the general funds. Yes, that is the general funds. This one, the middle one, is the WebKit GTK. And then we see this flat line at the bottom, and that is building GNOME community in Africa. Looking at this, we can pick out something and see where the WebKit, this is where the original announcement was made. And then we have these flat areas of no donations. This is where the WebKit GTK announcement was made. And we see us like that starting to be pushed up. And in between these two is we made the GNOME in Africa announcement. So what we learned from this again is, we hadn't done a lot of email list building. We did some, but we weren't reaching as many new people as we would have liked to. And we were having a lot of conversations with people who cared a lot about the technology. The people we were reaching out to were either already largely heavily involved with GNOME, and having talked to some of them, didn't feel as though making financial contributions in addition was what they wanted to be doing. We were reaching out to new people, but we're looking for what, we were looking, and we still are looking for new avenues of conversation. So those are some takeaways from that. Things that we'll probably not do 3 options in the future. Instead, we'll likely focus on one thing, that we can focus like all of our efforts on building enthusiasm around a single topic, rather than multiple topics, and try to get more people involved in sharing their stories, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. We also have some major gifts and sponsorships. I'm defining major gifts as more than 5,000. Indeed very generously gave us $10,000. We talked with them and they made some wonderful things happen. So thank you, Indeed. So major sponsorships, major gifts and sponsorships. These are opportunities to support things like general funds. We really like to be targeting. So the Indeed one was for general funds. But things that would be great opportunities for major gifts would be things like $6,500 USD sponsorship or gift would fund an outreach intern. Our general internships are $8,000 for 3 months. So people interested in doing those and supporting a very specific project within within GNOME, whether it's technically based or based in documentation or social or community or infrastructure. Travel grants are something we've talked to some people about. There's a lot of interest, and we'll talk a little bit. There has been a lot of interest in supporting travel grants. Things are a little different now than when we first had those conversations. infrastructure improvements, and your idea here. So if you are coming from a company, or you're a wonderful, very generous individual who says, hey, I have $5,000, I would love to give to GNOME to, get everybody who's a GNOME Foundation member to have a rainbow GNOME shirt. Like, we could talk. We'd be yeah, I'm spitballing here. We also have conference sponsorships. That is a major source of funding for us. The 2018-2019 fiscal year, so after we removed how much it cost to run the conferences, we had about $78,000 in, I don't want to call it profit because we're a nonprofit, so we don't profit. But that money went back into general funds and helped support the foundation, their activities. So far in 2019 and 2020, the gross is 26,000. It's not as much as it has been in the past. It's actually a little more now because we had some wonderful friends pull through at the last minute for Guadec. So thank you to them. So why is it different? And the answer is COVID. Right now, things have really changed because of coronavirus. And there's a lot less interest in supporting conferences and supporting events because even though people are still getting attention, they're not getting nearly as much attention. One of the things that happens, whether we realize it or not, is when we go to an event and someone there, if we see their name later, even if we don't talk to them, if we see their name later, we'll be like, oh yeah, like GNOME was there. Melissa works for GNOME. I like Melissa. Yeah, they're cool. And that really does matter. So you do lose a lot of things by not having in-person interactions with people. But there are still opportunities left to support the Pan-African GNOME Summit, which is postponed right now. They're doing lots of great community work, and we'll have an in-person event when it is safe to do so. GNOME.Asia is still coming up, as is the Linux App Summit. So even though opportunities to sponsor Guadec are gone, there are more opportunities to still sponsor at the GNOME Foundation. We also have the advisory board. The advisory board currently consists of these members. They are great. We would love to expand the advisory board. We've been talking with some organizations. The advisory board has a fee to join. If you are a company, it's tiered based on the size of your company or the size of your department within the company. The advisory board does a lot of, we have regular conversations with them where we listen to their feedback and they listen to our feedback. And we talk about what kinds of things we can do to build a better project that works for everyone. Some people who are advisory board members, I see some names here, and they would be great to talk with a little bit. I know we don't have lots of time, so I'm trying to speed along. We also have been getting into grants. Grants are new for us as an organization. So that's an exciting new territory. I'd like to thank a few people. Britt Yezel, Matthias Klassen, Ruth Ikega, Sriram Krishna, and foundation staff for helping with grant discovery and grant applications and the grant process. So far, we've applied for 4 grants. We're waiting to hear back from 1. We've been rejected for 2, and we've been approved for 1. So the grant application process is medium successful so far. But the fact is that when we first started talking about grants, I think it was Deb Nicholson who gave me this great advice, which was just, the first year you apply for a grant, you don't get it. And then you ask them why you didn't get it. And the next year you apply for the same grant and you get it. That made me feel a lot better about our rejections. As for partnerships, we've been working with Hypera informally. Jean-Philippe is going to be speaking tomorrow about the Debian community team. Jean-Philippe is at Hypera and has been doing super awesome work with us on our accessibility overhaul. Emanuele talked about that in his talk this morning or yesterday. Yes, the Archaeology of Accessibility talk, which I hear was great. And you can find Jean-Philippe tomorrow if he's not around today to talk more about Hyper and what they're doing. So we really appreciate that effort. And then we have this other great partnership that Melissa is going to talk about.
Thank you, Molly. So my name is Melissa Wu, and I'm the project coordinator challenge, as I mentioned earlier today. The Community Engagement Challenge was an opportunity that was created as a result of a grant from Endless. Next slide.
Boop.
Thank you. And we designed the challenge around some findings that exist in the current community. You know, we've found through research that there's a need for improved access globally to software engineering education and training. This is found through the statistic that 91.7% of engineers identify as male and 70.8% as white or of European descent. We also sort of formulated the challenge around the idea that attracting and maintaining the number of high-quality developers to help drive the GNOME project forward has been lacking. I used this statistic the other day, but you know, in the past, engineers do not contribute to open source projects more than once a year compared to the year before that. Now these numbers are from 2019 and 2018, but just gives you an idea that there is a downward trend. Another trend is that only 25.6% of developers use Linux as their primary operating system. So people have been going elsewhere, and this number has also been trending downward. We believe that addressing these challenges, or in setting up the challenge that we did, we thought that addressing these challenges was key to ensuring the long-term success of free and open software on the desktop, and that the GNOME Foundation was in a unique position to guide and mentor people on this path. So next slide. So like I said, as we designed the challenge, we wanted to make this an opportunity to engage new users and find ways to attract new contributors. As Molly mentioned earlier, we really want to get people excited, and we thought that this would be a good way to do that. We also wanted to make sure to recognize individuals and teams who are helping to support the next generation of foster contributors, because we think that that's so important. So as we've done, so we did all of this to ensure sort of the long-term success of free and open software. The challenge encouraged individuals or teams to submit stimulating ideas that, 1, connect the next generation of coders to the FOSS community, 2, improve the coding skills of a beginner coder by introducing them to the FOSS community, and 3, encourage FOSS community participation for years to come. Not an easy challenge, I assure you. The next slide. So this is what we did. So the foundation staff, Caroline and I, created an outreach program, basically. And we reached out at conferences, through email campaigns, through community managers, through listservs. We hosted community chats. We posted on social media. We did personal outreach to friends and family and coworkers. And this is what we did this time. But as you take a look at this list, if anything sparks an idea of, oh, why didn't you guys do this, X, Y, or Z? You know, please let us know. We hope to do challenges and outreaches like these in the future, and we only know what we know. And so your help and your guidance and your insight really kind of helps to spread the word. Next slide. And so this is what I want to show, the sphere of influence. Based on the outreach that we did, you can see where most of our proposals said they heard about the challenge. So about 50 to 60% say they heard about it through Twitter, the Linux Gamer, so media, other media places, and then friends, family, and associations. Friends and family are so important, and you know, various groups that you belong to are so important in helping to spread the word. But I don't want to underemphasize the other 40 to 50% on the left side of the slide, or excuse me, the right side of the slide. Because if you notice, it's made up, thank you, of a lot smaller micro influencers. In these cases, people listed individuals that told them, I heard about this challenge from so-and-so. I am part of the GNOME community. And I want to point this out because I want everybody to realize how important their individual contributions are to helping spread the word about GNOME, helping us to spread the word about this challenge, and really being able to make a difference in sharing information. Can we go to the next slide? So we have how we did the outreach. We have how people heard about it. And now I want to show you guys where the submissions came from, because you can see that we have a heavy influence in North America, some in South America, and then in populations in Africa, as well as parts of India. But we are missing influences and feedback and proposals specifically about this challenge from other parts of Asia and the other parts of the world. And so this just demonstrates that there are areas that we do need to work on in terms of outreach and communication, at least as it pertains to how we did the challenge. Now, I have to say that we had some really fantastic influencers in India, in Africa, and in the United States, in Mexico, and South America. And that is why we are seeing an increase in proposals from these areas. So just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what the challenge is about, how we did our outreach, and how important you are as an influencer, because it affects where our submissions came from. And if you go to the next slide, I hope you'll all join us on July 25th during Neil's talk to find out who the Phase 1 winners are. These are individuals that we are then going to be inviting to Phase 2 of the challenge, which will ultimately, I think the challenge ends in about 6 to 9 months. I wish I had that exact date off the top of my head, and I really should, but I don't. So join us on July 25th for the Phase 1 winners, and look for more news to come about the next phases and the final winner. You can follow, and I should have put this in the slide, but we do have a challenge email address. It's cechallenge@gnome.org if you would like to email us any questions. And we also can find you guys or find us on Twitter if using the hashtag GNOME Challenge. Thank you very much. Molly?
Thanks, Melissa.
No
I'm really excited to hear who is going on to the next phase. And I want to ask you questions about what you're secretly the most excited about, but I won't put you on the spot in public. So let's talk about the future. This is all in discussion. There are no promises about what's happening next. And I know we're running out of time, so I will be quick. We're redefining strategy for COVID because our normally events are a big part of our funding, and that's not increasing, or will likely not be increasing very much over the next year. So we're looking at what kinds of things we can do to fill the space that was previously filled by things that aren't happening now. More grants is a really big part. One of the things I'm working on right now is defining a grant strategy. A grant strategy is more than just like a scattershot, let's apply for grants as we see them come up, which is what we've been doing previously. But instead, it's thinking more holistically about the GNOME project and what parts of it we want to grow, and what parts of it need support, like from a financial perspective, whether that's material support, like, oh, wow, we really need to get a grant so we can get new computers for these developers to work on these issues. Or things like, well, it'd be really great to just hire someone to contract and fix this particular thing or build this particular set of things. So thinking about what direction the project is going in and what we would like to see happen. We have GNOME stories. That's what I'm calling them right now. We're looking for building out more materials and conversations and anecdotes about the way GNOME has affected your lives, whether that's contributing to the GNOME community, or you use GNOME in a particularly novel way. I know that we've talked to at least one person. We've been talking with someone who's blind, who says that the GNOME accessibility toolkits, not ATK, but like the GNOME accessibility tools have like completely changed their life. So we'd like to talk to you about the way GNOME has impacted you or has impacted people you know, and to share those use cases. So you can reach out to me if you want to talk more about that. And then we have some secret projects, which I'm just not talking about right now. But for a number of them, you can message me and we can talk about them, because I assume people would like to be involved and help out, which is kind of one of the big things that I want to talk about, which is your idea here, right? So a big, GNOME is people, not like Soylent Green is people, but like, we're a community of people and people make GNOME happen. So I want to hear your ideas for what kinds of things, what kinds of partnerships, what kinds of efforts, what kinds of fundraising, what kinds of like community building and expansion activities that you think we should be doing as a foundation, but also that you think we as a community should be doing, and how we can support you in making that happen, as well as if you want to support us in things. Support us by which I mean support me, because I need it. I'm very competent. I'm going to stop now and go to the next slide, which is some time for questions and places to contact us. I assume you're all clapping. It was great. Alex, are there questions?
Yeah, it was a great presentation. Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Melissa. First off, people loved your sodium joke, so thanks for that.
Oh, I can tell the whale joke, but only if people want it.
We do have a question, if you can take it. So it says, in what ways can we cooperate with distributions for marketing and fundraising? I ask because many users might know that they are using $distro, but not that it ships with a lot of GNOME code.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a great conversation to have with, among other people, advisory board members and distros as well. Something that I find very useful is just raising awareness on like both sides, raising awareness, right? So I think one thing that I think is great actually is all the distros that have sponsored Guadic, or have talks at Guadic, and who make clear that they have associations with the GNOME project, and talk about those with their users and their communities. I think a lot of that really is like marketing co-support. Something also to think about, and if you're at the distro, I'd love to talk with you about this, is what kind of work are you doing that gets upstream to GNOME, that we could be thinking about as we build out our grant strategy and as we build out our fundraising strategies, and what kind of ways like we can integrate it and work together to build things.
Okay, that is the only question we have on the Etherpad. If anyone wants to ask a verbal question here, I guess we have a minute for that.
I see in Rocket Chat, somebody asked if the secret projects are CE Challenge projects. No, they are not. And I'm sorry you missed the cat. I don't know where he is. Somewhere.
Bash was there for a part of it on the window, so we enjoyed that too. Thanks for sharing.
He's normally in my slides, so.
There is some concern that he might have jumped out at the window.
No.
I see another question in Rocket Chat. Gurav is asking, can we know how many participants applied?
The challenge. Well, we met our goals. We haven't been sharing the numbers, but we did meet the goals that we set, so we're quite excited about that.
I don't see any further questions in either channel. chat or Etherpad.
Mhm.
So
But
I
I
guess
hope
that's
none of that. I mean, that's time, and I hope none of that was a surprise, especially for Neil. That would be bad. I'm going to tell my whale joke real quick, because we're at time. So two whales are in a bar, and one whale goes, and the other whale goes, "You are so drunk." I really like Melissa there laughing. That makes me feel better about that joke. Okay.
That's a good joke.
Thanks everyone for indulging me.
Thanks, Molly, and thanks, Melissa.